Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be straying away from politics directly. I'm going to start a new segment where I'll be interviewing different business leaders and how they're tackling the demanding issues our country is facing. Today in particular, we have a very inspirational character out of Atlanta. We have Majesty of Majesty and Elize Sustainable Housing. Majesty and his wife Elize teamed together to tackle the affordable housing crisis in the Atlanta, Georgia area. They actually convert shipping containers into affordable single-family houses for marginalized communities. To hear more about his great work in Atlanta, please stay tuned for this episode of
Hello, everyone. My name is Majesty Gale. I am a property developer located in Atlanta, Georgia, that builds affordable housing.
Well, thank you for joining us today. It's definitely a pleasure. I came across your Instagram account and I looked into a little bit of research about the work you and your wife do, and I think it's very phenomenal work. So I just wanted to have you on today just to understand a little bit more about your work, what inspires you, what your passions are, and what you look to do moving forward. So to kick everything off, can you just give the audience a little bit of a background about who you are as a person and how you got started in real estate development?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First off, let me thank you for, having us on the show. We appreciate that. I've been a serial entrepreneur since I was a child, or whatnot. I was that kid that was cutting grass and walking dogs and everything like that. So I've always kind of had a hustle mentality. Started a few companies in my early adult life. One being a used car dealership. Also another one being a fintech company. So I've just always saw value or saw ways to create value in situations. I'm particularly from, a lot of a similar looking community as most of the people that look like me. And that's kind of what got us really passionate about real estate. We saw that a lot of the issues that our community was facing honestly had real estate as a common denominator as far as being a solution. We don't own a lot of real estate as a community, as much real estate as our counterparts. And it shows in the policy and the issues and different things like that that we have. We typically have to ask for handouts because
I just want to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
You made a statement and you were saying that lack of ownership of real estate is a common denominator to a lot of the problems faced in our community. Can you explain a little bit about that statement? What do you mean? Like, why is it the common denominator, and how does real estate prevent some of the problems that you see faced in Black communities particularly?
Well, specifically, real estate ownership is the I guess you could say the catalyst of all power. I mean, if you look at what's going on right now with Russia and Ukraine, it's literally about real estate. Every war is fought over real estate. And even when you think about something like the Declaration of Independence, they had landowners there that signed. Land ownership typically gives you more authority than someone that doesn't own land. For example, you don't have to ask for things. We have to literally apply for a permit to protest somewhere. If you own, the property or whatnot, then you just have more authority to do what you want on that property without asking for permission.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of what that breaks down to. Also, resources, things like that. You just have more control of your environment, so you don't have to ask people for things. You could just change the rules of your, community. And we
historically, real estate is seen as the most stable value of wealth over time as well, right? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that's really outperformed real estate as far as time. We have some newer things that have crazy volatility or whatnot, where you can make some money.
Crypto, right?
Crypto and some other things, even stocks, or some
right.
Different securities or whatnot. But real estate definitely has had the longest run and has made the most millionaires.
Now you were in, since we're on the subject of cryptocurrency, you dabbled in cryptocurrency a little bit a few years ago, right?
Yes, sir. I had a fintech company. Yes, sir.
So how did you come across Bitcoin, and when did you first invest in Bitcoin?
It was about 2015 for me, and it was honestly by just happenstance. I was in business, and people kept. I had people pay me or offer to pay in crypto. I didn't know exactly what Bitcoin was, but it got me on that path to figure out what it was. And then after a certain amount of time, I had so much Bitcoin that I had to exchange it into fiat or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I learned a lot. Yeah.
So about how many times did people propose to pay you in Bitcoin before you said, you know what, I'm going to accept Bitcoin?
Man, I probably say I got about $30,000 to $40,000 in sales through Bitcoin, and people were paying above asking price, which I thought was interesting as well for the convenience of using the Bitcoin.
So did you have a wallet? Did you have a wallet or?
At the time, no. I mean, I had to go create everything because basically this is when I had the used car dealership, and people were offering to buy the vehicles with Bitcoin or whatnot. So I accepted some of it, and then I exchanged it, and ended up making a profit when I exchanged it, and that's when it really kind of set off in my head the potential for Bitcoin.
Okay. And I take it you probably use some of those profits to, turn over into this development business as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It was some time later, of course, or whatnot. But yes, sir. Once we kind of got out of dealing in the crypto specifically, at the time regulations weren't where it needed to be. So yeah, I got into real estate or whatnot, and was able to use the capital that we got out of the fintech company for real estate to start our first projects.
Okay, before we get more in depth with the real estate development aspect of your business, I'd like to discuss just your overall entrepreneurial philosophy. Like, how did you said you were always a kid, hustling as a young kid. Like, what was the biggest hurdle you faced when you got started? And also, more importantly, what was sort of the roadmap that you developed to get to where you are? You can give us a brief synopsis of your story from beginning to now for all those aspiring entrepreneurs out there that just don't know where to get started or how to get started.
Well, it's gonna sound kind of cliche and whatnot, but you really have to take a leap of faith. There's gonna be a lot of trial and error, and that's honestly, I can go through my situation from beginning to end. We're just now getting the hang of things and stabilizing, kind of what we're working on, our activities. But beforehand, it was a lot of trial and error. We started out with the used car dealership that showed me a lot about processes and regulation and, working with customers and customer service, all that good stuff.
Did you just buy a used car dealership in an already existing business, or you just started buying cars?
We started one fresh. Got a dealership license, used car dealer license, and started fresh. We kind of had an interesting twist to it. We would actually locate a vehicle that people wanted, as opposed to, we did have a dealership with cars there, but we made most of our money by locating specific vehicles that somebody wanted, kind of like
so basically someone would come to you and they would tell you the car they wanted, and you guys would find that car and sell it to them.
Yep, and get financing and everything for them, kind of like a early version of Carvana or whatnot, just not on that scale. That's what we did. But I learned a lot about processes and everything like that, also regulations. With the fintech company, we learned a lot about scaling digitally. That's when I saw that you really can run a business, without having a traditional office. And that was kind of different for me. We also did international business when it came to Bitcoin. And that was the first for me as well. We did business with the Hong Kong, China, Africa, a lot of different places. It was pretty cool. So yeah, but it was a lot of trial and error. Obviously, you'll make mistakes, but you have to just keep going. And also access to capital probably was our biggest challenge. I think that's the biggest challenge for anybody getting into business, is access to capital to be able to carry out their business plan. And in the beginning, you got to kind of bootstrap and figure those things out. So that's one of the most difficult things and the challenges that I faced as an entrepreneur. But we were able to push through, and now we're here. So we're appreciative of.
So initially, when you first started with the car dealership, did you guys start out with your own capital?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But there's also funding available for used car dealers as well, from the auto auctions and things like that, where they'll give you some capital to be able to start your business.
Okay. Okay. All right. I spoke to you about 2 weeks ago when you were telling me about how you moved from New York City, correct? Is that what it was?
No, Florida. I
Okay.
moved from Florida to here.
So you moved from Florida to Georgia. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you from Florida to Atlanta and
Yeah.
just how you got started in real estate?
Got you. And that's actually a good transition because I came out here originally. I'm a musician. I play the keys or whatnot. So I came out here originally.
I feel like a lot of people go to Atlanta for music, actually.
Yeah, that's why this was '07. So Atlanta was like the music scene at the time. It was really cool being out here. I kind of saw the transition from what it was to what it is now. But I came here specifically for music to work with different artists or whatnot. Kind of got a development deal doing that. So I was working doing that. And the company that I was doing the production for also dabbled in real estate. And I saw some of the most amazing houses that I had ever seen in life. It was like some Fresh Prince of Bel-Air type stuff. The person that was bankrolling the record label also was a real estate investor. So I learned a lot there and I saw a lot there. And that kind of started my bug for real estate specifically, because I just never seen Black people own, mansions or anything. Like, I thought that was TV stuff, and I saw it. And that kind of got me like, wow, like I didn't know this was actually possible. And I kind of stayed up under them and learned a little bit about real estate from them and kind of took it from there. That was, maybe 15, 14 years ago when I was introduced to real estate. And then I kind of moved into affordable housing specifically because that's more like relatable for everybody. That's where the actual issues are. And I'm big on solving issues. I think that's what businesses are created to do. They're created to solve issues. So we committed to affordable housing for that reason. And, that's kind of how we got to where we are today.
Okay. That sounds great. That's really good. That's really good. So at what point in your journey did you say, I want to start with affordable housing, or I want to solve this issue? Is this something that's always been on your mind, or one day, you were working in real estate and you had an epiphany, you're just like, yo, affordable housing is it. I no longer want to do this other work. I want to do affordable housing. And if you don't mind, can you just tell us about the transition from when you were working with your friend, how you helped him build his company, and you guys had a different vision and you went on separate paths?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, that was a turning point with my friend who was a successful investor. He actually recruited me. He was in New York and he had a development firm in New York. He recruited me to basically expand his development firm here. He wanted me to be his boots on the ground in Atlanta, so he had a second location. And he focused specifically on distressed areas, boarded up houses, condemned, all that good stuff. So I learned
a fixing and flipping strategy.
Yeah, basically, but really working more so as a middle, as an intermediary between these areas and funds that want to go into these areas, like a Blackstone, or something like or whatnot. So those were our type of clients.
So typically funds such as Blackstone, are they buying these properties and in mass and fixing and flipping them all at once? Or are they tearing them down and making bigger developments?
So they had different strategies. It depended on who he was working with. But either way, they were fixing them up, raising the prices, and pushing out the people in the community, including the people that lived in the actual property that they were fixing up. So that was kind of the turning point for us. We saw enough of those iterations to see that there was an issue here. There was something that wasn't adding up, from tenants who rented the property for 30 years, and never thought to buy the property, all the way down to people that, one time there was a guy who was maintenance for the landlord. He had a lot of property, so he thought he was okay, but then the landlord decided to sell all the homes and, left this person high and dry. So we kind of got tired of seeing that. And once we understood the system enough and understood where the capital and where the resources were, we committed to going off on our own and being a solution for the affordable housing, as opposed to continuing to working with companies that were contributing to it.
That makes a lot of sense. And for people who don't understand exactly what we're talking about right here, so in these instances where these big, Wall Street firms will come into a community and purchase a bulk of homes, what Majesty is saying is that a lot of the people who were living in these homes were renting from the owners. And when they would sell to a new owner, the new owner was no longer interested in renting to the tenant. So they would, once their lease ended, they wouldn't renew the lease. These people would have to find somewhere else to live, and they would fix up the home, sell it for a higher price. And, these people had to move from a community that they've been attached to for the past 20 or 30 or so years. So this is a trend that is nationwide. And Majesty and his wife, Elize, they came into Atlanta and they saw a problem, and they are dedicated to fixing that problem with their solution. So can you tell us, what is your solution? How do you guys apply your solution to this situation? What is your fix?
Well, we have a few approaches that we take, and the goal at the end of the day is to maximize efficiencies in construction, because that's where a lot of the cost increases are happening. For example, construction labor makes up about 60–70% of the cost. So if we're able to control the labor cost, then that reduces the cost that we have as far as making the development, and that allows us to pass it along to the end buyer at a lower cost. For example, we build off-site. We don't build on-site. So that allows us to build quicker.
What do you mean on-site versus off-site building? What is that?
You have on-site building is what's typical, where you have all the materials show up to the site that is actually going to be erected. That's what you see when you see any type of framers build, framing the house up, or anything that people are doing. We build off-site at a facility, and we transport the actual modules to the location to install.
Okay, so it's cheaper to build off-site.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Much cheaper, because you get to control labor. It's all in one area. For example, you're inside. There's no weather to consider. You can run more shifts, so you get it done quicker. You avoid a lot of wastage or whatnot, because you're typically building in a controlled environment. So it's just kind of like car manufacturers. It would be the equivalent of a car manufacturer sending all the parts to your house and then building the car in your driveway, which would be kind of, ridiculous to most people, but that's how we build houses right now. So we're working on innovating in that space, but that's an example of how we reduce costs. Also, we're integrating technology into what we do, specifically augmented reality and virtual reality. Our blueprints, I'm sure everybody has seen blueprints, where you have a 2D, a piece of paper that has it, the design on the paper. We're turning that design into a hologram that our buyers and our contractors can actually see. So they can see the erected structure before it exists, so they have a better mental picture of what it is that they're building or what it is that they'll be buying. And this helps with wastage as well, and errors and measurements and different things like that. So we're able to cut material costs and labor costs that way. But we're just looking at innovating and bringing technology into construction. It's one of the most lagging industries when it comes to innovation, and we're looking to change that. And that's one of the ways that we cut down costs, and that allows us to sell our properties at a cheaper price.
Okay. Typically, what is the average price of one of your homes?
Right now, the average is about $300,000. And we're working on products now to get that cost down to about $200,000. And we've gotten some great partners in the city of Atlanta, with HUD, with different areas and nonprofits that will help us in doing that.
So what will that get you as far as square foot?
Typically about anywhere between about 1,000 to 1,400 square feet. And we shoot for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath as our average. We do have structures as small as 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and we also have them that go as high as 4,000 square feet.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that we can service everybody from every walk of life, but we want to make sure we have an affordable option for those that have the lower incomes as well.
And you're using refurbished shipping containers, correct?
Yep, and
So,
those are like Legos. You know, they
right.
can they have there's no limitation to what you can do with them.
So basically, for a 1,400 square foot home, 3-2 home, how many containers is that?
Typically 5, anywhere between about 5 and 6 containers.
And so you're building these individual containers out, shipping them to the location, and stacking them or building, assorting them like Legos on the lot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, is the price of the land included in that 300,000?
Yes, the price of the land. That's what makes us different than any other modular builder that you hear of. Like maybe you heard about Boxable or some of these other situations. They literally send you a house and a kit, and you have to figure it out. But we actually give you an end-to-end product, so you get the land, you get everything. You just move in and start living.
And how many developments have you guys built?
Man, I mean, we've done so many deals at this point. I say somewhere between about 60 to 70 properties.
Well, I guess when I say development, I mean like community. So are you like are you buying huge parcels of land and then breaking them up into smaller parcels and selling them off? Or are you just buying lots, individual lots?
Up until about, I'd say about maybe a year and a half ago, we've been doing just lots, kind of infill developments here, there, kind of randomly or whatnot. But up until about a year ago, we started buying bigger parcels of land that we could subdivide and create communities. So that's what we're doing.
Okay. So can you walk us through that process, of finding land, to surveying the land, and then saying, all right, let's start building, and then finding the buyers of the land.
Yes, sir.
And then, selling the home, and then building the home and delivering that home.
Yes, sir. Well, we got a lot of background in acquisitions from our time working with the previous organizations that I mentioned. So we finding properties is kind of our specialty. We only look for properties that are in distressed areas, specifically opportunity zones for the most part.
So you say property, you mean like actual structures, like houses, or just land?
Well, I'm talking about the land when I say property. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so finding land is pretty easy for us. We typically look off market because we can get the best deals that way. But you can also buy some on market. But yes, once you find the land, once you're able to lock in an agreement at a price that's reasonable, at that point you have to go into feasibility studies, which does include the survey, your site plan. You got to find out how many lots you can actually yield from this parcel of land. And a lot of that has to do with interfacing with the city. So at that point now, honestly, you're in a public-private partnership when you're developing property. Whatever city or municipality that you're dealing with, they're basically your partner because they tell you what you can and what you can't do, in different ratios or whatnot. We've had, a lot of good synergy working with the city of Atlanta. That's where we're more so focused. Also, the city of South Fulton. But yeah, so they pretty much let you know what you can build, how many lots you can subdivide, and from there you just go into land development. As far as your horizontal, that's clearing everything, bringing in dirt if you need to level it out. Sometimes taking dirt away, and everything like that. Once you have that done, you move into your vertical development, which is where we bring in the containers that we prefabricated and install them and erect them vertically and finish those out with electrical and all that good stuff on site. The full process for us, because we're building off site, typically takes anywhere from about 6 months to up to 9 months if you have any type of delays total for the entire process from beginning to end. And a typical on-site construction can take anywhere from about 12 to 18 months from beginning to end. So we're able to cut down that time frame.
Okay. That's great. what are some of the barriers to expanding this across the nation? Like, have you guys tried working in different states?
Yes. Most of the barriers, honestly, is that everybody talks about affordable housing and says that we need it, but nobody wants it near them. Nobody wants it in their neighborhood. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we face is that when we say we're building an affordable housing development, people automatically start having some type of negative thoughts about it as far as the community or the type of people that it will bring. That's a challenge. Also, just cost, being able to keep costs low. I'm sure everybody sees the cost of everything increasing right now, from gas to food to just rent, everything. So keeping costs low is a challenge, and you just have to be really, you just have to be able to adapt because there's nothing that we can do about some of the costs that come through the supply chain. For example, lumber. There's nothing that we can do about that, but we work very hard to mitigate all the losses that we do have control of.
Okay. If an individual were interested in purchasing one of your modular homes in a different state, is that something you guys take on or no?
At the moment, we're focused on Atlanta just because we have our plate full here, but we do have plans to expand into Florida and Tennessee within the next about year to 2 years. So at the moment, we're focused specifically in Atlanta, and we're raising capital through our fund to expand.
Okay. Now, I did some research on you two, and I saw an article where it said the title is Millennial Couple Launches $100 million Affordable Housing Initiative. So when you guys first got started, did you raise all of this money for your fund, or and if so, how much of that money was your own capital?
This is for that was the fund that was being mentioned there, and it's actually a $250 million target is what we have on that fund, and it's to build our structures in opportunity zones. We are currently still raising money. We launched that fund eight months ago, but we're currently still raising money. We'll probably be raising money for the next 4 to 5 years when it comes to that fund. And we put about I'd say we put about 600,000 of our own capital into it, and we've raised, some more capital from accredited investors as well, that are looking for tax breaks on their capital gains.
And
Um,
basically, they would see a return on investment as well on their money.
yes, yes, of course, yes, sir. And with the Opportunity Fund, you not only get your return on your investment, you get some significant tax breaks. For example, their profit that they make on our projects, they pay zero taxes on. So, there's some benefits to investing in an opportunity fund specifically.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So when did you guys first get started with this project?
With the fund,
No, just everything in general with the real estate.
um, well, in real estate, we started in real estate probably about 8 years ago, like full time, myself, full time. And we started the container home developments. That came right after COVID started. So COVID started about February. We were building our prototype in May. And that's kind of what kicked everything off. We built our prototype container home at our offices on Fulton Industrial. Fox News came and did a story, and it kind of went, viral and whatnot. We got a lot of incoming interest, and that's when we committed to that stuff, to that strategy.
So you guys are building a model home.
Yeah, we built one, and it's at our offices now. And then, yeah, they came and did a
Okay,
story on us, and
and
we
that's
just
what
saw
it
how much
blew up.
interest was there. Yep, yep. There was just so much interest in
Okay, and then you
take.
just had people. You just had people coming to you, showing the interest, and then you guys would go out and find the land for them. And then
Yep.
start the
Well,
process.
yeah, we were already, doing traditional stick-built homes, flipping things like that. But then we committed to the container situation, and things just kind of skyrocketed for us as far as
Okay.
interest from buyers and also from investors.
So what is the process of someone who wants to buy a home? Do they have to come to you and put a deposit down, or can you explain, the process of buying the home from the buyer's perspective?
Yes,
For
sir.
someone to be interested in doing business with you?
Yes, sir. We throw all of our projects on the MLS. So I mean, if you go to Zillow, and you'll see all of our projects that are available there. Our projects sell out typically very quickly. We work with Keller Williams on that piece. So we have a broker that represents us, and our broker is great. But she handles everything. Her team handles everything when it comes to sales. So if you see it on, it's literally like buying any other property. It's on the market. You have your agent reach out to our broker. They put in an offer, all that good stuff. These can go FHA and other government funded mortgage programs. So in many cases, some of our buyers don't have to put any money down because of down payment assistance and things like that. So it's pretty much the same process as buying any other house that you would see on the market.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the event where you brought over 3,000 people together? Was that during COVID?
Yeah, that was during COVID. We've always been pretty, big on community efforts. We do develop property, but when we're in these communities and working on projects, we see what's going on, within a mile or two radius, and we see the need, and we have the resources to help in some areas. For example, we redistribute food from grocery stores like Whole Foods and Dunkin' Donuts, some other places. We take the food that they plan on getting rid of because they don't have anywhere to put it, and we redistribute it in the community by working with nonprofits like the Atlanta Mission, different things like that. So we've always kind of had a community initiative behind what we do, and that's what this bringing these people together was for, because we have a product that's a $60,000 housing product that we're looking to gain support of the community, the city, the regulators, or whatnot, as far as building a tiny home community. And that's what they were requesting of us, specifically the city of South Fulton. So we brought together the community to prove that the demand was there for that project, with the hopes that they would allow us to use our building methods in the city of South Fulton, because the city of South Fulton at the moment prohibits the use of containers. And there's a lot of issues like that in development when it comes to the government and regulations that actually stops developments from happening. So that was the reason that we brought these people together. And we're still working on that initiative till this day, and hoping that the city of South Fulton will allow us to do the project.
So South Fulton, where is that?
It's actually like South Atlanta. It's a newer city. They kind of just pulled away from Atlanta and created this city, and it's one of the most blackest cities in Atlanta, in the metro areas. So it's a newer area or whatnot, and we're hoping to be able to be a part of building that city up. They just have some older, antiquated methods of doing things, and we're just working with them to hopefully, get them a little bit more forward thinking.
And so you two are trying to build a community of tiny homes.
Yes, yes.
So about how big? What's the square footage of these homes?
They range from, well, tiny home under 800 square foot is typically what the standard is, but they range from about 320 up to 800 square feet. Different plans.
And those are about $60,000.
Yeah, at the low end, $60,000, and go all the way up to about 125, 150, depending on finishes and everything like that.
Okay, that's very interesting work. It sounds like. I know there were some other topics of discussion I wanted to touch on. Well, it seems like you two have a lot on your plate. What are some of your, I guess, plans for expansion? Are you guys planning to do that, or are you just trying to just stay within what you've already, started? Or
Well, part of our plans for expansion was finding a facility that was large enough to be able to produce as many homes as possible. And we have been able to do that. We're actually moving into a 200,000 square foot facility next month. We're working on it now, finalizing everything. And that will allow us to be able to build our capacity so that we can expand. And we look to do the same thing in different areas of the country, where we have a manufacturing facility that we can distribute from. and hopefully start working with some developers in these different areas and partner with them so that we can have, as many projects going on at once.
So basically, right now you're looking for a larger manufacturing facility to build more of your homes at once.
Yeah, well, we locked that in. We're finalizing that now. And it's still on full industrial as well. So we're happy about that. So we're moving from a 5,000 square foot facility to a 200,000 square foot facility, and that would allow us to build our capacity to service more people.
Okay, that's great. That's great. That's great. That's great. Do you have anything else you would like to add, or any other subjects of discussion you think we should touch on?
I think that everybody's kind of feeling the crunch of pricing when it comes to housing, whether you're buying or renting right now. Mm-hmm. And you just want to be very cognizant of what's going on and understand that there's a shift happening right now with wealth all around the world, and real estate is a very important piece of that. So if us as a community, I would like to see us do more things as far as group economics. I would love to see they have Koreatown, they have Nova Haiti, they have, I would love to see something where we have our own community to where we can control the narrative more. And, we're doing our part to help out with that. And I would just like to see, our community do more to reach that level, because that's when we'll be able to be more independent and get more done for ourselves.
You know what? This might be a little off topic, but do you have any, how can I say, do you have any opinions on the current housing market? Do you think that another bubble is being formed? Do you see prices cooling down anytime soon? And if so, do you have an opinion on some sort of timeline?
I personally don't see the pricing cooling off anytime soon. That goes for houses for sale or for rent. And the reason I say that is because supply is just supply and demand. We have decreased our building since the 2007 recession. We haven't reached the same levels of building since before then. Honestly, they started doing the quantitative easing and printing the dollars and everything like that. So in my opinion, we've been operating under a fake economy since 2007 because the government has been propping it up. And that also affects the real estate arena in the fact that, like I said, we're not building as much as we were before. So we don't have as much supply, which means that there's going to be more demand. And that's not going to change until we're able to increase what we're doing nationwide significantly. The National Association of Realtors said we need 5.5 million homes just to keep up with the pace.
How many homes?
5.5 million homes.
Yeah, 5.5.
Yes, that's what the National Association of Realtors has said that we would need to build to be able to have a stabilized supply. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, especially with the regulations that are in place as far as permitting, because it just takes too long to build a house, unfortunately. And, we're working on kind of, I guess, streamlining that process. But until then, it's just more people that need housing than there is available housing. And in any market like that,
right,
it's just not going to be.
And there's also a labor shortage as well.
And Jesus, yes. Labor shortage, particularly it's going to get worse because unfortunately, the new generations coming up, they're not interested in working with their hands. Yeah. So
right. Do you think the changing in lending practices will decrease the likelihood of another bubble as big as we saw in 2008?
Yeah, they're very careful about making sure that they don't, have that happen again. I mean, and I kind of saw the tail end of it. I was just becoming an adult, so I didn't completely understand what was happening. But I did see how easy it was to get a home. And so I don't think that we'll get to that. When we do get to that level again, if we do, then that's when we'll know we're getting close to a bubble. But I don't see that happening. They're kind of tightening those strings as far as requiring more down, and even the appraisals aren't coming back as high as they were back then and different things like that. So I think that they're working very hard to keep this market where it is. But hopefully that changes because I think that everybody does deserve to have affordable housing in the sense they're not, paying all of their income out specifically in housing. You can't get ahead doing that.
So on average, what is the national, I guess, rate of return on investment or just the increase in the value of homes on the national level?
Man, it was, I believe, it was around 15% nationally, just year over year, which is, ridiculous. That
It is.
if it continues doing that for 2 to 3 years, then it's going to price a lot of people out. And rentals were worse. It was about 20 to 25%. Unfortunately, a lot of landlords are taking advantage, or more so, I'd say, getting revenge for the moratoriums that were going on during the pandemic.
Okay. Um, I think I'd like to, ask you about, some policies that may have helped or hindered your initiatives. What were some, did you, what were some changes in the policy efforts that may have helped, assisted, or harmed your efforts, transitioning from the Trump to the Biden administration?
Hmm, that's a good question. I would say specifically with the opportunity zone legislation, Trump and that administration had a lot more support for that initiative than the Biden administration does. They seem to be, they just seem to have a different approach to, increasing economic activity. We'll see what happens, but there's not as much capital available for projects as there was when Trump was in office. And I'm not political at all, so I'm not for or against any particular person. But as a business person, there was more capital available when Trump was in office than there is right now with Biden, as far as support for real estate projects and different things like that.
Specifically in like, areas that needed more development as well.
Yep. Opportunity zones, which are distressed areas that Trump designated specifically for people to go into and invest. So we're still kind of, working on that end, and we'll see what happens. I'm just not sure what the goal of this administration is when it comes to the Black community and bettering our situation
Okay. Now,
in a specific manner, not symbolic manner, but in a specific manner.
okay, now do you think that that push to, make that capital readily available in opportunity zones under the Trump administration, was that accelerating Black flight, or was that more so trying to develop those areas while keeping the populations there?
I would say, unfortunately, that it accelerated Black flight. At least initially, and it's very early, in that program because of COVID, with the break that we had in between. But there are, rich people taking advantage of the tax code, and that's what they do, and that's what the a capitalist society actually, incentivizes them to do. But you do have organizations like ours that are actually doing the work and looking to do good in the community that's still here. So, that'll be the case in anything. But yes, I will say that it did accelerate, some Black flight in areas, and we're looking to change that narrative ourselves.
Okay. I had another question for you. I feel exactly what it was. I don't know if it was more so on the lines of the political agenda, but we just talked, and it's a new conversation just sort of started, which I thought was a very good branch off into something else. Trying to think. I guess do you have any advice for anyone who's in the market to buy a home or who's thinking about buying a home? Like what kind of advice can you give them?
Buy ASAP before things get any worse, and they're going to keep going up, and the rates are possibly keep being hiked and different things like that. So I would
Okay.
say, if you were going to buy a house last year, you should have whatever. But if you're thinking about buying one now, go ahead and jump in. It would benefit you
Mhm.
because you'll continue to see these things get more difficult, and you'll also continue to see these multiple offers, and also these investors and these funds and everything coming by and making it more difficult as well. So if you do have a deal or a project or whatnot, anything that's available to you, take advantage of that, and kind of get past your fear when it comes to that. I promise you that it will benefit you as long as you do right by the property.
Okay. Here's the question I wanted to ask you. Biden's infrastructure bill. Do you know anything about that? And did anything in there, you know, was it geared towards construction? Did you see it as being helpful, harmful? And I'll ask you my follow-up question after you answer that.
Okay. I'm aware of the bill and some of the details of it. I always look at things like that when it comes to housing to see if there's something we can tap into for the community. Unfortunately, when it comes to funding from the government for housing, when you see affordable housing, that typically means that they're talking about building apartments and renting them to people in the community, which doesn't necessarily, I mean, it's a temporary, help or whatnot, but it doesn't help when it comes to generational wealth and being a community stakeholder and different things like that. Most people's net worth is comprised of the equity in their home. And that's why we have the big wealth gap between, black people and, white people and different races, is because we don't own, as much property, and when we do, that property also is devalued. But that's another story. So I don't see a lot in there for actual housing that will help people become homeowners. But I do see a lot of stuff in there for multifamily to be built. And I think that's kind of where we're leaning towards, is more people becoming renters, which I think personally, I'm not a supporter of that. Just because I've seen what happens to people that rent. And I think a lot of people that are renting now are starting to understand the position that you're in when you rent. You're just at the whim of the landlord as far as increases and changes in the terms. So that's not a good place to be.
Right, right. Okay, as far as the shortage of labor in the construction industry is concerned, one thing that was interesting to me is they really didn't set aside any money for trade programs.
Nope.
Oh, what is that about? It just seems sort of self-defeating to me.
I agree, and I thought it was interesting because it's all build back better and everything, and I don't know who's going to actually be the people that are doing the work.
Doing the work, right? Who's doing
So
the bills?
I'm not sure, man. I was hoping that something else would come, but I'm not really sure, unfortunately. But we do our part as far as trying to make sure that we bring up
Right.
brothers and sisters in the community and teach them about the trades and teach them how profitable they are. Because it's great to have a skill like that. You'll be able to make money anywhere that you go in the world.
Right. Well, I think
It,
that's great. Like, so are you guys like working or thinking about maybe developing partnerships with, different schools, different trade unions, different organizations that teach these skills, and maybe just doing like a grassroots ground up sort of stimulation,
there's
where you're just educating the public, because as it stands now, everyone thinks that college is the best option when really it might be the worst option.
As completely agreed. And yes, we go all the way down to middle school as far as our outreach. I just went and spoke to a middle school this week, to let them know, about the good points of being in real estate. There's so many careers in real estate, from design, being an architect or an engineer, being a broker, being a construction. There's so many different things that you can do. We don't necessarily learn about a lot of them. And, we want to change that and have us be more involved in the real estate industry and construction specifically for a lot of males, especially males. I know a lot of black males sometimes have checkered past, or sometimes, didn't finish school or something like that. And construction is perfect for that, because you can make, high five figures, low six figures very easily without a degree, without anything. If you just have the will and the want to learn a skill, and you can learn it pretty quickly on the job. So, I think that workforce development is, one of the top, should be one of the top priorities of the country. But it's definitely one of the top priorities of our organization, because you can't really get anything done without, having those skilled trades in place.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes things that are common really that are common sense just aren't commonplace, unfortunately. Um, well, no, I think that's fantastic. Um, Trying to think. Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely love to stay in touch. To
Yes.
understand more about what you guys are doing, and maybe we can piggyback ideas off each other. If there's anything I can do to maybe put you in touch with some people, that might be able to help, establish a reciprocal relationship, with any people that I know. I love to do that. Next time I'm in Atlanta, I'd love to come down and check you guys out, see what you're doing, but I think that pretty much wraps everything up. So do you have any parting words for the audience?
What I want to say, once again, I appreciate you for having me on. And we're very serious about building our community. So if anybody is aware of any communities that need any type of attention, we'd love to be a part of the solution, whether it's through referring you to somebody or just having conversations like this, where we can get together and talk about solutions. It's very important that we do for ourselves, and I believe that we have the resources to do it. So just want to say that we're a resource here, and we're serious about building our community, not only nationwide, but globally. So any ideas, any concepts, I know there's a lot of genius out there. So let's just connect and let's make it happen.
You know what? One last thing. I saw a video on your YouTube channel where you had people from around the world, I believe it was.
Yes, sir.
A European conference or something along those
Yes,
lines.
sir.
Can you just briefly tell us what that was about?
Yes, sir. That was a investor group that I was speaking to, investors all over the world, just kind of talking about our projects. We have a lot of interest from global investors that kind of, interested in what you. I mean, It seems like I've never been out of the country myself, but I hear that we are, people love Black people outside of America. That's what I hear. I don't know if that's true. But we get a lot of interest from global investors as far as what we're doing, wanting to support what we're doing and invest in our fund and help us push our initiatives forward, not only here, but globally, because we do have plans to expand to other areas globally where the African diaspora is also having housing crisis, similar to like Africa and even South America and different areas like that. So that's their big us to expand into those areas over time. And with the shipping container model, it works perfectly as far as transport and everything like that. So that's what that was about.
And so you have to be an accredited investor to invest with you, correct?
In our fund, yes, you have to be an accredited investor. We're working on some other solutions there as far as that goes, but that's just SEC and regulations there. But we're working on some other solutions there. As far as having more of our people be able to be involved in our.
And right now, that's the only mechanism for people to invest is through your fund.
Yes, through the fund right now. Yes, sir.
All right. And so you guys are trying to work on other solutions where you guys can do that as well.
Yes, sir.
Like, what about the crowd, like the crowd rise or the
crowdfunding type
the crowdfunding, or even what about fund capital or fund rise? They have these apps where, like, you can invest as little as $1,000. What's the difference between you guys and them? Are they just bigger and better players where they're allowed to have people come in at a lower threshold?
No, it's just the structure of their fund. There's different types of funds. As far as they got Reg A, Reg CF, we're Reg D, 506, and that allows us to advertise, but we cannot accept we can only accept accredited investors. We're looking at launching a crowd fund to where we can accept investors as low as $50 or something like that. Honestly, it just takes a little bit more work. And it's more reporting to the SEC to do that. So it's actually more of a burden on the fund, but you do get to work with everyone. So that's something that we're working towards as we grow.
Can you tell us what the requirements are before you are an accredited investor? Like, what are those requirements?
The requirements are that you make 250,000, I believe, a year, or you have 1 million in net worth. So it's another form of redlining almost, in the sense of only 10% of American households qualify as accredited, and that's all American
And when
households.
did those rules come into play?
I'm not exactly sure when those rules came into play. They've always been in place since I've been in business and raising capital, or whatnot. So I'm not sure when that came into play exactly, but that's a strict rule that the SEC has handed down to anybody that's raising capital using securities.
I believe there's I don't know if this is the name of the organization, but it's called Family Offices.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, well, yeah. We work with family offices, or different types of family offices. Yes,
Okay, because there's this. I'm on an email list. I forget the name of this particular guy's company, but he has a lot of connection with family offices and things that nature. I wonder if you heard about him. I forget the name. Once I find it out, I'll let you know it. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have for you. And you can just stay on for a little bit. I'm about to stop recording.
Okay.
And I just want to talk to you for a little bit longer.